Hello and welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, February 18th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Today we talk Royals with beat writer Lynn Worthy and columnist Sam Mellinger. You may recognize the format. We recorded a SportsBeat Live earlier Thursday, similar to the Chiefs SportsBeat Live shows that we recorded during the week and after games, and presto, now it's a SportsBeat KC podcast. Nobody in the media knows the Royals like Lynn. Sam was the Star's national baseball writer for several years before locking down his columnist gig, so no better way to kick off a SportsBeat Live Royals edition than with this lineup. Oh, and by the way, the Royals SportsBeat Live will become a weekly presence on the Star's website and social media channels. So today we talk about the lineup, what's different in 2021, and the expectations for newcomers like Carlos Santana, Andrew Benintendi, Michael A. Taylor, and Mike Minor. So here we go, talking Royals with Lynn and Sam. Hey, welcome to SportsBeat Live, Royals edition. Hey, we are really excited to bring you SportsBeat Live, talking baseball, the way we have done with the Chiefs throughout this season and previous years. And we do it with those who know the Royals best. That is beat writer Lynn Worthy and columnist Sam Mellinger. They're in the house today. We invited Vahe Gregorian to be here, but Vahe had a conflict, so he says. That's so Vahe. So Vahe.
Deep.
But, that's right. So great to have you, Lynn and Sam. And for those of us who have watched, for those of you that have watched the Chiefs SportsBeat Live, you know the drill. We run this show on your questions and comments, and we get to as many of them as we can. And of course, where we are on the calendar, it is time for questions and comments when it comes to baseball and spring training, because yesterday pitchers and catchers reported, and spring training in Surprise, Arizona is underway for the Royals. So, gentlemen, I thought we would start with just a sort of a quick look back on what the Royals did in the offseason and go from there. If you took the final lineup from the 2020, the last game of 2020, and when we project what the opening day lineup for 2021 is for the Royals, not a ton of changes, not like a wholesale change, less than half of the roster, but some significant changes. Lynn, let's just go through the big ones here. And I'll run down. On the final day of the 2020 season, you had Salvador Perez at catcher, Hunter Dozier at first, Nicky Lopez at second, Mondesi was at shortstop, Michael Franco, the third baseman, Alex Gordon in left, Bubba Starling in center, and Whit Merrifield in right with Jorge Soler, the DH. How many new faces are we going to see in the lineup projected for opening day 2021?
Well, you're looking at probably four new, not new faces necessarily, because Dozier will still be in there, but four people in new places at least, because you'll have most likely Carlos Santana will be your starting first baseman. Hunter Dozier will start at third base. Andrew Benintendi in left field, and Michael A. Taylor in center field. So, I mean, that's 4 out of, 9, if you include the DH, 4 out of 9 that you're talking about new faces or new people or people in new places. And then, and obviously pitching staff, they made, a couple additions there. And but yeah, the lineup is going to be different. Lineup's definitely going to be different. Whether or not it's going to be better, I think right now on paper it looks better, and right now, in spring training everybody's better. Every one of the 30 teams is better than they were the last time you saw them on paper right now. So, and the Royals are definitely in that boat.
Even the Dodgers have improved their team, and I think they had a 800 winning percentage and roll into the World Series championship last year. So, do you agree, Sam? Is this a better lineup?
Yeah, I think it is. It's deeper. I think they've got potential holes offensively at center field and second base. Those guys need to prove that they can, produce at the big league level. There's some question with Carlos Santana, just with age, right? He wasn't productive last year. I don't know what that means in 2020, right? Could mean something, could mean nothing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to see, like, I don't guess the point that I'm trying to make, like, what scenario exists other than big injuries where the Royals aren't going to be better? Like, they just should be. Their guys are mostly on the right side of the age curve. They've got some pitchers in the minor leagues that can, help produce or, help make the pitching staff better. They need to figure out the bullpen a little bit. I mean, I think that's probably a worry that the front office probably has right now. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, this is an improved team. It's the most optimistic. Honestly, it's the most optimistic I've heard the people in that front office in 4 years. It really is. I mean, I think that they believe that they can compete.
Okay, well, that's saying something. The one name that was that stood out to me that was in last year's lineup, but not in this year's, was Michael Franco, and the guy was productive. What did he? He led the American League in a couple of categories and led the Royals in several. But I guess the Royals felt like they had a comfortable solution by moving him along and putting Dozier back at his sort of natural third base position.
Yeah, and Dozier the last couple of years has sort of been a big piece for them in terms of giving them flexibility. I mean, the fact that they were able to, they knew they'd be able to go out and get Franco, last year. The part of that was, okay, well, you can move Dozier to the outfield. He ended up playing a lot of first base at the end of last year, but really the thought was he was going to be outfield going into last year. Then, you could say, okay, well, his flexibility allows you to look at outfielders, allows you to look at third base, allows you to look at first baseman. His ability to move around was a big part of that. And Franco, I think it really just came down to, he was arbitration eligible, and the Royals had to try and figure out, and Dayton Moore was pretty, open about this in the offseason, but they had to maximize the money that they were going to be able to spend. And from what I understand, Michael Franco was looking for, a hefty increase, like maybe in the neighborhood of like $9 million. And so if that number is accurate, then you look and say, well, they're paying Santana $7 million in his first season. And, basically it's the money that they spent on Santana and Michael Taylor with a little left over is what you were maybe looking at having to pay Michael Franco. So, and you were able to slide Dozier over there and, obviously still be able to make some other moves happen with the trade for Benintendi.
And of course, the Royals looking for that, was it a 26 home run season, the last full season for Hunter Dozier, something of a, we got some great pop and triples too. I think he tied for the American League in triples that year as well. So showed some great pop. What about Michael A. Taylor in center field? Bubba Starling started, got most of the starts in center field in the abbreviated 2020 season. Is this the comment on Bubba that not the long-term solution for the Royals in center field?
I'd say it's more of a not just them wanting to upgrade altogether. I mean, they look at Taylor. I mean, because Bubba, they were able to keep Bubba in house. I mean, he came back on a minor league contract. But Taylor is a guy who has played on the World Series team. A couple years ago, defensive runs saved. He was one of the top center fielders in the game in that category. And then his power potential. I mean, a guy who's hit 17 to 19 home runs, I think, a couple years in the big leagues, is something that you haven't seen from Bubba. So I think that the defense, the potential for power, and the fact that they think there's still more upside there, I mean, that remains to be seen. Again, this is still spring training time, so everybody's there's the sky's the limit for everybody, and everybody's going to make improvements and make big strides right now. But even if he's still the type of production he's seen the last couple of years, where he was, and to be fair, he was playing part-time the last couple of years. But if you still have that production, you figure you're going to get defense out of him. The lineup should be deeper, so that shouldn't be such a big deal for maybe if he's not making the sort of strides you want offensively.
Gotcha. Okay, Sam alluded to it a while ago. The bullpen and pitching. Mike Minor, of course, was the big offseason acquisition for the Royals, and re-signing Greg Holland. Look, this was the pitching staff, especially the bullpen, took big strides last year. Again, a 60-game season, and make of that what you will. But it was an upgraded bullpen a year ago. Of course, Trevor Rosenthal was part of that for the first half of the season. He gets traded to the Padres, and of course, and today he just made some news. Just signed a 1-year deal for $11 million with the Oakland A's. So no Trevor Rosenthal for the Royals, at least at the start of the season. For those that wanted the Lee Summit native back in Kansas City. So how about the pitching, Sam? Did you? Is this a rotation that if we're looking at Keller, Duffy, Singer, Bubic, and Minor as a rotation, is that manageable?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny about Brad Keller. I feel like he gets overlooked a lot. Because we're always talking about Singer and Lynch and Bubic and Asa Lacy and all these guys, but Brad Keller's not much older than Brady Singer, and he's got 2 elite pitches. He's shown repeatability and consistency and all those things. I mean, what a find! Just a Rule 5 guy. Just a great find, and they're finally. I mean, just overall though, they're finally at a spot where they've got some depth. Like, I think even last year when those guys, the younger guys, aren't quite ready, it's like they might be okay now, but one injury is going to wreck it. There wasn't much margin for error, and I'm not saying the Royals are the Dodgers or whatever with pitching depth, but they've got some guys that you can dream on. They've got some guys that you expect to have consistent, solid, competitive, big league production. They're going the right direction there. I do think though, like with the bullpen, 2019 season, that bullpen was a wreck, right? I mean, that was in a lot of ways. I think that the relievers, the bullpen just ruined that season. It just, everything got out of rhythm, and it was just, and they made huge strides. But I do think that, and I think this is a worry internally of just that 60 games, like you just said, Blair, like being a relief pitcher, having a bullpen over 60 is a lot different than 162. And, guys are up and down. That's a volatile spot on a baseball roster. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're still looking, if they still sign, another reliever or 2 just to get some more depth there.
And I think I would maybe push back a little bit on that group that you named, because I think 5 guys is not going to be anywhere near enough in the year coming off of the pandemic, especially when 2 of them are rookies who pitched. I think Singer was like 65 innings and Bubic was 50 last year. Like that's so everybody wants to, or at least I shouldn't say everybody, but I know the loud folks on social media want to push like Duffy to the bullpen and Junis to the bullpen. Well, the fact of the matter is the innings that you're going to need this year, you need those guys to pitch innings. I mean, in Junis's best place may eventually be in the bullpen, but if you look at the last couple of years, the guy who's giving you the most innings actually wasn't Duffy; it was Junis as a starter in the rotation, because Duffy had some injury issues. Now he's put up the most innings, in his career as far as he's pitched the furthest into a season than any of the other guys. But you're going to need these guys to give you innings, because you can't rely on Brady Singer threw 65 innings last year, and he's going to throw 200 this year. That's just not going to happen. And, whoever you're projecting, if that's Daniel Lynch or whoever else, you just can't count on that. So these guys, I think, like Mike Matheny's already, and Dayton Moore had said this a couple of weeks ago, 6-man rotation is something that's on the table. They haven't committed to it, but that's something that you might see early in the season where the schedule is spread out. Matheny was just saying yesterday, you don't need a 6th guy. You don't need a 5th guy for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some of the younger guys skipped. I mean, and we're months away from that right now, but still, I mean, like, so that this idea that, people are sort of in a rush to put those guys into the rotation full time is like, yeah, this will be the year where we get to see more of them. But to think that they're going to go a full season is something that I think people need to be careful about assuming. And even Keller, I mean, everything Sam said was right. And obviously he's, for a young guy, he's done a lot. But we also got to remember he's had 1 full season in the rotation, which was 2019, and they shut him down at the end of that season. So, I mean, so the idea that people think the starting rotation is sort of like, okay, we know what's going to be there. It's like, no, you don't. And that puts more pressure on the bullpen. So you just need a lot of pitching. And that's going to be the question mark this year. I think that how that staff comes together, the rotation and the bullpen and how they're able to piece things together and stretch guys out, that's going to decide their season.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
Yeah, they generally feel like, and everybody's in the same boat on this, right, of the jump from 60 to 162. But the Royals, I think, are stressed more than most with that just because of the age profiles and things like that. They generally feel like most of those guys, or a lot of them, had sort of the equivalent of 140, 150 innings maybe of work just from spring to through the fall. But you can't tell me, or you can't tell anybody, that those 140 innings are big league innings. Right, like it's a lot different throwing an inning, at Yankee Stadium or against those just a freakish White Sox lineup. That's a lot different than doing it at T-Bone Stadium, sort of in a glorified extended spring. So they've got some real worries there, because one of the things about that group of pitchers, they haven't had any setbacks really. Just the performance. Injuries, like everything has been, and it never goes like this, but everything has been, pretty steady and optimistic. And, that's going to be stressed in a way that it hasn't yet, because there's, this is set up for a lot of injuries, not just to the Royals, but the other 29 as well. That's a big worry throughout the game of just how to manage that.
And that's where guys, like people say, well, Mike Minor, is that a big ad? And to me, at least the innings and the experience is a big ad. You got a guy who's gone 200 innings. I mean, you need that, and especially this year, because there's, he early in the season when they're skipping guys, they're going to be looking at guys like Minor and definitely say, hey, you guys go every, fifth day, fourth day, whatever it is, because we can't push that on these other guys. And everything that I've seen and I've heard so far is Minor's going to be one of those guys who says, hey, let's go. You need that. That is important. So for everybody who's sort of like, well, is that a big signing? I'm like, well, I think because of where you're at with your young pitchers, it is big.
Lynn, I want to go back to something you said a moment ago, words that have never been uttered on a SportsBeat Live. Everything Sam said is right. I never heard that.
That's a clip it.
That's right. And you also called them the loud folks on social media. I love that.
Yeah, well, because we see a lot of that stuff, and I'm trying to be careful about what you see in who jumps in your mentions is that's what most people think. Because it's easy to fall into that. They're like, oh, okay, I see a lot of people saying that that's what most people think. Well, that doesn't mean that's what most people think. It just means that they're the ones who are rather boisterous about it. Right. Hey, let me ask you, how does Ervin Santana fit into the mix of all this? I think that's another guy where, innings, you're just trying to get guys who you think can give you innings, guys who you at least you feel like you have some idea of what you're going to get from them or what you might get from them. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be, elite top caliber stuff, but you think what you'll get and you think you can rely on them to give you innings. I think that's why guys like that will be important. I don't know if he factors in right away, but again, if everybody that you have to reach down and grab out of the minors is still in that same boat as Bubic and Singer, where they haven't had a whole lot of experience, and last year there was no minor league baseball, having a guy who has been around and who's pitched innings, at the big league level before, and be able to have that option, that can't hurt. Wesley asks, can we come this year to the games? What do we know about first of all, spring training attendance, and then what do we know about regular season home attendance, Lynn? I believe the last I heard was in Surprise. They were talking about having some sort of reduced attendance. I haven't seen ticket information. I was looking online. I don't remember if that was earlier this week or when the schedules, the revised schedule came out. So I haven't seen information about it. I know the thought was that there was going to be some sort of reduced ability to be in the ballpark. So they're not going to be full houses, but there's going to be some folks out there. I think Arizona and we know in Arizona they had people at some football games for NFL. I think there's others that they didn't. They had people in the stands for some hockey games. I believe there'll be some reduced amount. And then in Kansas City, they're still working on that. But I know the thought was that it would be something similar to what you saw with the Chiefs, where, are like 20, 22%, something like that, which I think the number that the Royals were probably looking at was somewhere between 6,000, 7,000, and then in pods of, 2, 4, 6, something like that. But I don't believe that's official yet. I think that's what they wanted to do. And that looks like what they'll likely be able to do based off what the Chiefs did. But I think that was still to be, set in stone. And also my understanding was that the, season ticket holders were going to be the first ones up. I'm not sure how that exactly is all going to get divvied up. But, yeah, that was what they were looking at.
Weren't the Royals, you guys, weren't they one of the teams that were really eager to get fans back in last year? They were trying to figure out a way to get fans into Kauffman Stadium at least the last month of the season.
Yeah, they wanted to. They were open about that. John Sherman talked about that. They all talked about that, and I think they were really disappointed that they couldn't. I mean, you need local officials in the commissioner's office, to make that happen. And I don't think the commissioner's office that was just never a thing. So I don't think it ever got to the local officials.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs season had already started when the Royals were still continuing in September, and the Chiefs were putting 13,000 at Arrowhead, and there were no fans allowed in Kauffman Stadium. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. We certainly hope that that's going to be the case this year. And just as an aside, I know the Big 12 tournament that's coming up in a few short weeks here at T-Mobile Center haven't announced any kind of attendance or ticket sales yet. So we're still waiting on that to happen. So, okay, Doug asks, what needs to happen for the Royals to finish above 500? I've seen a couple of projections. Lynn, maybe you can remind us what we've seen projection-wise for the Royals. I've seen a couple of them. USA Today's had one. Fangraphs maybe had the Royals in the 70s somewhere, I think.
Yeah, I know the Pacoda the Pacoda projections had them at 71 and 91, and I believe that was like a day before Benintendi trade. And I'm trying to remember the Fangraphs one that I have in my head. I think was a playoff projection, like their chances of making the playoffs. It wasn't a record, so like that. Again, I think there was a 10%. They had them projected playoffs. I think that's the number that I remember. I don't remember a record, but I think everybody's had them. I think the Pacoda ones. What stuck out to that about me was that I think that win percentage was roughly what they were at last year with the 60-game season, and just sort of stretched out over 162. I think that was in that ballpark, as at least win percentage is what the Pacoda rankings were. But to me, again, it's going to come down to, I think the lineup will be better, as we've talked about, but the pitching, and not just for them, but for everybody, the just the uncertainty about pitching, how you're going to be able to use it, who's going to be able to stay healthy, if you're going to be on your 10th starting pitcher. Last year, and it's easy to forget now, but last year in the shortened season, and just with COVID, they didn't have a rotation to start off the season. That wasn't guys injured. That was just COVID. You started off the season. Singer pitched the second game of the season. I think Mike Montgomery made that one start and didn't get through, I don't think, 3 innings because he was pitching hurt. You had openers, in the first week, and the first 10 games of the season, it was like, who's pitching today? So that's going to be a big question for the Royals and for everybody this year. Yeah,
look, Sam, the AL Central, didn't win a playoff series last year in the expanded playoffs, and yet, right now, I see the Tigers as the one team that the Royals should clearly be better than, but White Sox, that lineup is formidable. Twins, I don't see them, reverting a whole lot. And then I think the Indians take a step back, but I don't know how big a step back. And all three of those teams made the playoffs last year. So we can look at the AL Central and say maybe there's not a 90 victory team in the Central, but there are good teams in the division.
Yeah, it's part of, we didn't really talk about this at the time. Didn't matter, but like the Royals were in the right division when, the first time, like from 2013 to 2015, that was the right division to make a rise, and they're in the wrong division now. They really are. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to look at what the Royals have both in the big leagues and the minor leagues, and just, I can see how that would work. If Bobby Witt becomes a star, Asa Lacy, in addition to the guys that have been in Kansas City already, long term, like this looks like a thing that could work. But then you start comparing them to the Twins, or the White Sox. I mean, there was a guy who's made his living in business for decades, or made his living in baseball for decades, that last year told me that White Sox are the most talented team he's ever seen.
Wow.
And imagine they traded Fernando Tatis too. Like, I just can't imagine the talent that's been through there. So yeah, I mean, it's a struggle. It's a struggle in that division. I keep thinking about the scenario that seems, I'm not gonna say likely, but I can see happening this year with the Royals is that they play pretty well for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever. They've got talent, a lot of energy. They play pretty well, and then it starts to fade. Some of the stuff that we've talked about already with the pitching, guys playing 162 for the first time in their lives. I think that maybe if they get through that first 3 or 4 months playing pretty well, the last month or two might be a little bit of a struggle for them.
I mean, the one that I think I still keep coming back to is just Cleveland. I'm not sure how good I expect Cleveland to be. So, like, people say, well, where can they finish in the division? And I'm like, if you could maybe leap over Cleveland, and I'm not saying that's a given, but I feel like that would be a really big move for them to be able to be behind, Chicago and Minnesota. And I mean, obviously, as we'll talk to them, or as we've talked to them already, like players, manager, all that sort of stuff, they're going to say they want to win the division. And that's, that should be what their aim is. But I mean, as far as expectation, expectation to the point where if they don't reach it, then, at the season, you're like, you're looking to call somebody out. Like, I don't think it's that high to be, to say, okay, they need to be into the race for the division. I think it's, if they can get into that spot where they're right behind Minnesota and Chicago, I feel like they've made a big move this year. And if they're playing, if they got games that are meaningful in September, I think that would be big. I think that would be a really good year for them.
That's really all you ask as a baseball fan, right? Is to have meaningful games in September. Do we know, has baseball decided to continue the expanded playoffs, or is that still to be determined?
As we sit now, it's not. But I mean, I think last year they didn't finalize that until the day of that first game. Like, I'm trying to remember who it was, the Yankees and somebody were playing that first game, and I believe that was that was when you when you heard what the playoff format was going to be.
Okay, so we'll I guess we'll wait and see. Certainly, an expanded playoff will favor teams like the Royals that are on the rise. So, okay, good spot to end it here, Lynn. I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I know schedules are uncertain once baseball starts, and I'm glad you were able to squeeze us in. And hopefully, we can do this on a weekly basis. We'll figure out a time and try to be consistent with it. And we had such a good time doing it with the Chiefs over the years. And I think we'll have equally good time talking Royals baseball throughout the spring, summer, and into the fall. And we'll have Sam Mellinger and Vi Gregorian and other writers here as well, taking your questions and comments. And Lynn, thanks for doing this. And we'll talk to you again, hopefully next week. I know you're heading to spring training on Sunday, and can't wait to read what you've got coming from Surprise, Arizona. So for Lynn, for Sam Mellinger, for our producer, Beth Welsh, I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon. That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Lynn Worthy and Sam Mellinger for stopping by and talking Royals. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we have another deal for you. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. What better time to get it? Lynn Worthy's heading out to spring training. Read all of his Royals coverage on Sports Pass. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. Do you want more than just sports coverage? I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports, news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of these offers, send me an email, bkerkhoff@kcstar.com. I will get you to the right place. Whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Friday with another episode.